Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go. Go Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go Toronto, go. Go Argos, go, go, go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Argo Bounce live audio show with Nick Small and myself. It's a weekly audio show devoted to the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL 18-time Grey Cup champions. I hope everyone's doing well on this Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. And I'm looking forward to our show tonight with Nick Small. And we have a special guest with us as well. I'm going to bring on my co-host, Nick Small. And our guest tonight is going to be Mike Hogan, the manager of communications for the Toronto Argonauts and their longtime play-by-play radio announcer on TSN 1050 in Toronto. And Nick, we're going to talk to him about the Argos win against the Eskimos, or the Elks. I'm old school. I still got the wrong name there. And maybe the return of McLeod Bethel Thompson and some former Argos. And we'll preview the upcoming game against the Montreal Alouettes and maybe some Ricky Ray moments as well. Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Mike, got to ask you this question. That Argos song, I can't remember if I asked you or not. Is that from the 60s? And who found that fight song?
It's from the 60s.
Okay.
I'm not sure who brought it to the table to have played at games. I know that I really liked it. Liked it a lot. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, as are you. And, you know, there are so many college teams and NFL teams and CFL teams that have that old-timey fight song that I think adds to it. And I really pushed for the organization to use it more. And Bill Manning was totally on board. He worked for the Eagles for 4 or 5 years, maybe more. But he really liked it as well. So there was a push on to get it going. And the fans have really taken to it. And it really warms my heart when I see people get into it. And, you know, especially when the crowd is a little bit bigger and there's a lot more regulars there who are singing along and with the words going along. I'm really, really happy that this has taken off the way that it has.
Gotta agree, Mike. I love the fact that even during the cutaways, they have the maestro from the Argonauts coming in and conducting as everybody else is out there cheering along.
The legendary Steve Heyman.
Yeah, it brings such a positive and energetic atmosphere. And every time the Argos score a big touchdown, you hear that cannon go off, get the extra point, and then boom, we're all right in a song motivating the team along after. And especially in a game like this, when it was just such a back and forth offensive slugfest, just an absolutely phenomenal game. And I feel bad for anybody who missed that game because they missed out on a really incredible experience. This might already be one of the best games of the season, and we're only 2 games in for Toronto.
If people like offensive output, that was their game. It was 75 points. I think there were like 750 total yards in offense, maybe more. 3 lead changes, I think. And then you get the home team winning on the last second field goal. I mean, if you're a fan of the Argonauts, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, people are going to pick things apart because that's what we do. You always look for negatives, and you know, there were obviously some coachable moments out there, But man, right now the offense is ahead of the defense, and that offense is singing.
Mike, wanted to ask you this. Obviously, Cameron Dukes is in his second year. As fans have seen how much he's progressed and developed, how much do you credit? Also, it's you got to give Dukes credit, but how much do you credit the Argos coaching staff with his development and having him ready to play this year?
Well, it's all part and parcel, right? I mean, you've got a guy who's got the physical skills, but not the experience. And the fact that he had Chad to learn from last year, the fact that he's got Ryan Dinwiddie as the head coach who played the position professionally. And one of the unsung heroes on this team is Mike Miller, the quarterback's coach, who has a lengthy resume coaching in both the CFL and the NFL. I mean, he was on the Arizona Cardinals staff when they went to the Super Bowl and was their offensive coordinator the next year. So, he's been an OC up here. He's the OC in Montreal. He knows what he's doing and really knows the position well. So it's a story that maybe wasn't reported enough last year, but he was ill last year and missed the last 2 weeks of the season, including the Eastern Final. And I think when Chad threw that first interception on the first drive, if Mike had have been there to kind of be that calming influence, that was something that Chad didn't have that day. And maybe that was a story that isn't talked about. But Mike Miller is a tremendous coach, and I'm sure that Cameron Dukes and Brian Scott and Chad are learning and still learning on a daily basis from him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Mike Miller there. I think a lot of people didn't realize that until after the fact, and myself being one of them, realizing how huge an impact that would have had on the game in that East Final. The one stat I find that's really insane to think about is that in the years Ryan Dinwiddie's been head coach, in these opening day games, he's had a different quarterback every single game and has managed to win all 4 opening days with a different quarterback. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Nick Arbuckle, Chad Kelly, and now with Cameron Dukes. So that's pretty insane statistic, and it gives great credit to how good a quarterback's coach he is.
The guys are prepared. I mean, you may see occasionally the Argos will be out talented, not often because it's a very good team. Sometimes they'll not have the breaks. They'll turn the ball over more than their opponents. And this is not to take away from any other coaching staff in the league, but the Argos are always as prepared as anybody else. Dinwiddie's got them going, and I think the results. And you mentioned the quarterback, carousel that's been going on since he's been in here, and still been able to win. He's won the East all 3 years that he's been here. He's been a Coach of the Year nominee all 3 years, finally winning it last year. He's just done a remarkable job here. No question about that.
Hey, Mike, the offense didn't really get started until about 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. And that, I believe it was McMahon's touchdown that kind of got them started. And what I like about this team, even when they get off to a bad start, obviously against BC and against Edmonton, they don't panic. And what I wanted to ask you about this too is the offense, 374 yards, but only 214 in the air and 186 on the ground. And that's, to me, is old school football. And that's like how the Eagles play. That's balanced offense.
When you've got a young quarterback, especially, you want a balanced attack. And that's what they've been able to provide, which is going to call off, the second level. They're going to have to respect the run. Once they start adding more deep balls, and we saw a couple of those on what night was the game? Saturday night against Edmonton. The more they are able to incorporate that, the more dangerous Dukes is going to be. He's capable of doing it. It's just finding the time and place to do it. Dukes is really going to benefit from the running back by committee, as are the running backs. I mean, Carey looked great. You mentioned the run that McMahon had. I got fooled by that. When I'm watching the game, I have to watch the ball as the play-by-play guy. And I saw kind of with the peripheral vision, I saw the line step back. And I called it a sweep. And as soon as I said sweep, I noticed that the guards were coming toward us and the back was going the other way. So it wasn't really a sweep, it was a counter. But it turned out to be the perfect play at the perfect time. And when you've got a guy with the speed and agility of McMahon, get him in open space and look out. But it was a great design, just a fantastic design of that play.
Speaking of counters, how about that Richie Sindani, the kickoff return he had where he drew everybody out the one way and then at the last second buckled back the other way and just pulled everybody around for a huge return. It's impressive to see the speed in this lineup on multiple facets of the return game.
Yeah, Janarian Grant, I think, is who we were talking about. Janarian's,
Grant.
Yeah, this has happened more than a few times over the years, but you'll see somebody who plays on another team and you see them, but you don't really take in the intricacies of their game because you don't see them on a regular basis. Quincy Mauger is a guy that we didn't, you play at 10 o'clock at night most nights on the East Coast. Not everybody stays up for those games. He's been a pleasant surprise, but when Janarian Grant made his first appearance at camp this year at Guelph, he was just different than the other returners. And that's not to diss any of the other guys, but he is so smooth and able to just, be moving forward at full speed. And then just that little bit of a twitch. And you mentioned the cut on a dime. Not everybody can do that. And I asked him about that. And he says it's just natural. He played basically every position he could over the years in high school. He's a quarterback for a while, played running back, played receiver, played DB. So he's just comfortable having the ball in his hands. And a lot of that is natural. Some is taught, but I think in his case, most of it is natural. And boy, is he ever a difference maker out there.
And Mike, as a fan, I do some media work, but as a fan too, I was a little disappointed with some of the players they let go, but it's obviously a business. But I think right now this team has done a great job in replacing those guys. And I just think this organization with Pinball and Bill Manning and John Murphy and the coaching staff, nobody panics. They just seem to know how to put together guys in there.
Yeah, I'll give Vince Magri a lot of credit as well before he left for the Bills at the end of training camp in restocking. And it wasn't easy. And, last year was a unique situation because the league's MOP was still on his rookie contract, right? So with Chad getting the contract that he did this year, that ate up a lot of cap when you're going from 100,000+ to, I guess it's reported, high fives this year. All of a sudden there's $400,000 you got to account for. And that made some tough decisions. And, offers were made, I think, to all of the free agents that left saying, here's what we can offer you legitimately. If you can go get paid, go get paid. We don't want to hold you back, but in our budget, this is what we have to do to make everything work. And some guys left. AJ Ouellette left, made a lot of money. Darius Pickett, Boris, Leak, Barlow, they all went. They got paid, and good on them. I don't think anybody holds that against them. But at the same time, you've got to find a way to fill the void, and the Argos were able to do that. I don't know how they did it, but they did. And when you looked at some of the salaries that came out, and I know 3 Down did a list of the top salaries by position. You look at that and you'll say, oh, okay, the Argos are spending money here. They're not spending money here. And you look at some of the guys that are maybe underpaid by CFL standards because of the way that the free agency shook down for them. Now they've got an opportunity to come here, play, and then go get the money like the guys did this year, and then have the staff try and fill their shoes next year. I mean, it's just that's the nature of the business.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, it's just to add to that, it makes me think of just in this particular game against Edmonton, there were a lot of guys who went and got paid playing for Edmonton, coming back in Toronto, and the little bit of reunion it was with guys like McLeod Bethel Thompson, Curly Gittins Jr., who else do I got here? Javon Leake, Boris Beatty, Sam Achimpong. Like there's a huge list of guys who have been on the Argos within the last 2 seasons who have now come back in this game for Edmonton.
Yeah, Josh Haggerty and Shane Richards as well.
Thank you very much for adding
Yeah.
those guys as well. Not to disparage on anyone. It was really great to have them all back, and I think that was one of the big selling points of this game. The fact that there was such a reunion of guys who have played just past couple seasons, as well as the guys on the current team, made for a really engaging game between sort of the old generation and the current generation of Toronto Argonauts players.
Yeah, Ben Grant and I talked about it on the broadcast, obviously, because it was, at one point, McLeod Bethel Thompson throws a touchdown pass to Curly Gittins, and it's converted by Boris Beatty. And I remarked, can we stop this? Like, can we knock it off with the former Argos? And Ben made the observation that this is what Calgary must have felt like when they played the Argos in 2019, right? When coaches and you made the coaches as well. Chris Jones was here, Jason Shivers was here, Marcus Howell was here, Jarius Jackson was here. So a lot of their coaches came through Toronto as well. And it was just, this is what Calgary must have felt when they played the Argos in 2019, where when a team achieves a certain amount of success, guys want to get paid. Last year was a record-setting regular season, and guys had great seasons, and they're going to try and capitalize on that the best they can, and nobody's going to blame them for that. And as I mentioned, it's up to the front office to fill the voids. And I know a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen at the beginning of the season, and I think for a lot of people, when they see Carey play and when they see Mauger play, that they're kind of going, okay, I'm not as nervous as I used to be. And they see what Liram Hairola who's been able to do. And Janarian Grant, like, it kind of eases the pain a little bit of the guys that we lost.
Yeah, I wonder how many people remember when Hairola was still in Toronto.
His last kick before he left was a pretty big one. Game winner in 2017.
That was 7 years ago. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Mike, I wanted to ask you this. I know the Elks are 0-3, but to me, out of all the 0-3 teams in the CFL right now, I really feel Edmonton is better than their record.
Oh, I don't think there's a really bad team this year in the CFL, and I said that before the season. The teams that were lesser lights last year, Edmonton and Ottawa, maybe at the head of that list, both have improved substantially. And if Drew Brown can play up in Ottawa, they might catch lightning in a bottle up there and put a scare into the Argos and Owls, who seem to be the two better teams at this stage of the season. And Hamilton could be, I don't know if they really had a shot last week, but they could easily be 2-1. They're not a bad team. They're not a horrible team. I'd like to think that Toronto and Montreal are kind of the top two, and we'll see how that goes as the season progresses. The Ticats and Red Blacks will probably both be on that continual climb as the season goes along, as they get used to each other. The same way that the Argonauts defense will get better as the season progresses, as they get used to each other in the secondary.
Thoughts on McLeod Bethel Thompson's performance against his former team?
Oh, he's awesome. It was 350 plus, I think, or 340 something, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kept a couple of plays alive where it looked like he was in trouble and was able to step up in the pocket and find somebody late. Made a couple of throws that I don't know if every CFL quarterback can make the throw because of his arm strength. He looked like Mac at his best, and that Mac wanted to be at his best coming back to the team where he played for 5 or 6 seasons.
Nick?
Yeah, it was really nice to welcome him back too. I know there was a bit of a mixed reception for some about welcoming McLeod Bethel Thompson back, but I've mentioned it before on our show. I think we owe a lot of gratitude to him for what he did in that 2022 season that won him and us the Grey Cup. I think a lot of people have kind of overlooked what he's contributed. So I thought it was really fitting. And for all the players who are on that team who are now with the Elks, it was nice to have that little moment where we could really thank them, especially with McLeod, because he had left to play in the USFL and we didn't really get a proper chance to say goodbye until this game on Saturday.
Yeah, but I'm biased. Mac's one of my favorite guys to ever come through here. I find him a very intriguing conversationalist. I just love the guy to death. I think for me, that was a really good outcome where he played well and Curly played well and Boris played well and Javon played well, and we still got the W. I mean, that's to me, that was because all of those guys have fans. Curly Gittens Jr. was an immensely popular player. Boris in and out of the room. Leak really won a lot of fans over last year. Haggerty was a popular guy. Shane had fans here. I mean, everybody who came through here has a following. Achimpong has family here. He's a local guy. You know, there's always going to be a connection between Toronto and those players. So I'm very happy that they, you know, didn't fall down and you know, lose by 70 points, even though that's the goal of the Argos. And I'm just thrilled we got the win. And the guys that we became friends with over the years played and accounted for themselves very well.
We saw it on social media too. There was a great amount of posts where Argos fans had called guys over, like Javon Leake, like Curly Gittens and others, and posting selfies and photos with them, autographs and signs and everything. It was a really nice, heartwarming moment to see with all of that. And you're absolutely right. It's these guys are always going to be loved here in Toronto, even if they do play for another team, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, and I saw so much of Curly when he played at Laurier, and
Same
you
here.
know, I was a little disappointed when we didn't take him in the second round, and when he was still there in the third round, and I guess it was Jim Pop drafted him. I was giddy. Like I knew this guy had something that could be, you know, mined at the next level, and through his hard work and his natural ability and his intelligence and dedication to the sport, he's made a really nice run of it for himself, and I couldn't be happier. And you know, I didn't get a chance to see many of the guys before the game because of the commitments I had, but you know, I'll probably reach out to them this week, say sorry I missed you, and you know, keep it going, because like you say, they're not an 0-3 team. They're much better than they were a year ago.
Hey, Mike, I know the crowd was only 10,750 on Saturday night, but I'm going to tell you this. I've been to sporting events where there's been 40, 50, 60, 70,000 fans, but the fans that were there at BMO Field Saturday night were as loud as some crowds I've seen 40, 50,000 before. I just thought.
It's an amazing group of people we have as our base fans who bring it every week. And, you know, we sit up, the building is set up where the sound is held in, despite the fact that it's an open air stadium, because it goes up where we are at the top level, up by the roof, and it just kind of bounces around up there. So it's really loud up there, even with the headsets on. We know when the crowd is into it, and they hear it. Like, guys have talked to me that how cool it is that the fans are as loud as they are, and it makes a difference when you know, the opposing team is trying to call signals. So I hope there's a lot of folks come out for the game against the Alouettes. There's a lot on the line in terms of the standings. It's obviously time for a little payback from the guys in the room. They've circled this one on the calendar without question. I know Montreal wants to prove that last year's Eastern Final wasn't a fluke, and they're still the top dog in the East. So it should be an interesting game. I'm really looking forward to this one, and I hope there's a loud, proud, large crowd out there on Friday night.
Mike, unfortunately, I won't be there. I'm spending my the weekend in Buffalo covering the Bisons for my birthday, but the Argonauts gave me my early birthday gift with a win over the Elks, and hopefully they can defeat the Alouettes on Friday night. And speaking of Friday night, Mike, thoughts on Ricky Ray? And I'll get Nick to add his 2 cents in as well on Ricky Ray being the 27th member of the all-time Argos.
Unbelievable player. Just, I don't know if the CFL's ever had a more accurate quarterback. And, you know, I know how many hearts he broke and how many times the Argos just went into Edmonton, or they came here, and you go, my God, does he ever miss a pass? And then he shows up here and was just as good, if in some instances even better statistically than he was in Edmonton, and led the team to 2 Grey Cups. You know, was a master in the game in 2012. And here's a guy who threw an interception on his first pass and didn't phase him at all in that game, and came back and threw some touchdown passes, and one to Dury and one to Owens. And you know, he was just that guy. And then, you know, in terrible conditions, threw as accurate a pass as you can imagine, that ended up going for 100 yards to DeVere Posey when he had about a 1 foot window to throw the football into, and did. in a snowstorm, and just off the field, consummate gentleman, hard worker. People don't realize the dry sense of humor that Ricky has because he doesn't show it off in public, but very easy guy to work with. Guys would go through a wall for him. Very rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. He was just, can't say a bad word about the guy on or off the field.
As for the all-time Argos, Mike, how does that process go? Are you involved with that selection as well?
No, this is exclusive domain of the Argonauts Alumni Association. They have their annual general meeting each April. They have people vote that night, and they send out ballots to those paid members of the association. Excuse me, and they send back their ballots, and then they release who the one, or in the case of a couple of years ago, the two players are that are going to be honored. So we are independent of that, but we do everything in our power to celebrate their selection.
Nick?
Well, reflecting just on Ricky Ray, I think the ambassadorship he had as a silent leader is something that really reflects on me. I think I kind of alluded to it last week, but I had an opportunity just as a kid in youth football. There was an Argo camp with that I was invited to, and I was able to play catch with Ricky Ray, and he was just such the way he was able to bring about his knowledge and to be willing to do something like that to just some 13-year-old kid like me at that time. It's something that I know I'm never going to forget. And that 2012 trade for that Grey Cup year, I remember when the news broke, and I looked at my dad, and we just looked to each other and we said, yeah, we're winning the Grey Cup this year, because there was no way without Ricky Ray that we weren't going to be able to make it work.
Yeah, and the two of his receivers that helped him win the Grey Cups here, both going into the Hall of Fame this year. Chad Owens was so integral, player of the year, most outstanding player in 2012, had the touchdown catch to get the scoring starter for the Argos in the 2012 game. And then S.J. Green, who was so good, he's going into the Hall. And, S.J. was pretty quiet in the snow in Ottawa until he needed to be loud on that last drive to set up the field goal, and made a couple of key plays down the stretch in the fourth quarter. So, he had some great talent to work with, but you need the maestro to work the orchestra properly. And, it had been a while since the Argos had that guy. The late, sort of that with no disrespect to Cleo Lemon or the guys in that era, they were always looking for that Ricky Ray type, that Matt Dunnigan, that Damon Allen, that Doug Flutie, Condrich Holloway. Right. They were looking for that next one, and we've been so blessed with some great quarterbacks here. It was just wait. And when Jim Barker was able to pull off that trade, I will admit I didn't think it was legitimate when I first saw it. It was unbelievable that we were getting Ricky Ray.
A little bit of payback for that Jackie Parker trade to replace Tobin Road. We needed one to go our way, right?
How old are you again?
26.
27.
Yeah, you look great for 90.
I haven't seen a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup yet, unfortunately. Last night, the streak continues.
Are you old enough to have seen the Ticats win? Barely.
Yeah, I was still in diapers, so I don't remember it, unfortunately.
1999.
The good guys in double blue.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, we've been spoiled. Like I said, when I was growing up, my first 11 years, nobody saw the Argos win a Grey Cup since 52. And since 1983, we've seen them win 8 Grey Cups, and they've won, 7 in a row, which is a CFL record for Grey Cups consecutively.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about it. And we had that as one of our top 150 moments last year, because it doesn't make sense. Like, you get to in this league, usually it's not necessarily a 50-50 proposition of winning, but you would think it would balance out. And in a lot of those games, the Argos were the underdogs. I can't remember what the spread was. I think they were underdogs in 17 and in 12 and in 04 for sure. I can't remember if they were underdogs in 83 or not. They probably were, because
BC, yeah.
So I mean, you look at those, that wasn't part of the streak, but it's just, they've been able to win games that they weren't supposed to win. The Flutie years, they were favorites over Edmonton. They were prohibitive favorites over Saskatchewan. 91 with Rocket, they were favorites in Winnipeg over Calgary. So, they've won when they were supposed to, but they also won when they weren't supposed to. And that's, I don't know how much of that is just good fortune and just maybe the Argo Bounce is alive and well.
And best equipment manager in the CFL.
Danny Webb had part of 1996 in the snow in Hamilton. He definitely had a major part in the 2017 win in the snow in Ottawa.
Oh, yeah.
And another thing that doesn't get talked about, in 2022 in Regina, it was the wind chill for every practice that week until Saturday was in the minus 30s. And none of the guys would sit on the bench. They were just those plain metal benches that you would see, basically at a playground or at a high school. So when the players came out on Sunday, Winnipeg had metal benches. What Danny and Dave Silberg did was they found thermal blankets and they affixed them over the benches, and they took the heater where the players will stand around to warm them, and they put it underneath the bench. So the blankets kept the hot air in under the bench. And when the guys sat on the bench, it felt like it was August. So they could sit down between plays. And in a 1-point game that was decided in the fourth quarter, may have been the difference.
Mike, I was going to say Danny Webb's been with the team since '85. That's somebody who I'd like to have on our show one day, because 35 years, that's like, 39 years ago. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's his 40th year. The 40th anniversary will be next year. And it's his 39th season because they lost one to COVID. So he is the encyclopedia. And Jason Claro is right there with him. Danny hired him in his first year. So, it's amazing that guys have been around the organization for 40 years. I'll say that since this is live, we're going to make an announcement on Wednesday about something we're going to be doing to honor some longtime Argos on Friday night. It's a new initiative that the team is going to do. So we'll be honoring 4 people at halftime on Friday, and I will leave it at that.
I think I know who one of them is, because Adam said something on Friday or on Saturday, but I will definitely make sure I can watch the game or somehow listen to you guys on it. But I'm excited for what they're doing with that announcement as well. We'll save it for Friday anyways.
Yeah, 3 greats who should be recognized by the organization. It's something. Pardon, Jack. Jack gets the opportunity to get on camera, and he'll take advantage of it every time.
Mike.
Sorry?
Mike, I was going to say, speaking of dogs, I want to give the Argonauts in-game presentation a thumbs up for the Super Dog Show at halftime.
Most popular thing. Teams around the CFL do it. I've been watching it for years in basically every city, and it's always the fans don't go anywhere. We talk about it on the broadcast. It's just anybody who's a dog person, and I'm a major one. I love watching those guys just fly, or the dogs with the frisbees. And as I remarked, as those dogs were tearing through the obstacle course on Saturday, if my dog did that, he'd just run in a different direction and go looking for something to pee on. Like that's Jack. He doesn't care about the athletic point of view. He just wants to hang out and be a dog.
Any chance in the future we can get a marching band too? Because I'm still one of the old school traditionalists, the marching bands too. That would be cool again.
Yeah, I know it's been tried a couple of times. I'm a big fan of the Argonauts when they were playing at Rogers Center. I know they tried it with the Burlington Teen Tour Band. There were mixed reviews about that, but yeah, I grew up in Kingston, and my first venture into live football was watching Queens football. We used to march down from when I was in high school, we'd march from main campus. The stadium is in West Campus, which is, I don't know, half a mile walk. And the band it's a bagpipe and drum band, and they wear the kilts and the Gaelic regalia for the Gaels. And they would march around campus and pick up stragglers, and people would just walk as a parade down to every game. I love bands at games, and it's to the point where if I hear a bagpipe, it's very Pavlovian, but if I hear a bagpipe, I think Queens football immediately. It's very strange, but that's the impact that band had on me as a kid.
Nick?
I gotta learn my bagpiping skills then.
Hey, Mike, do you have time for a couple more minutes?
Sure,
Couple more
absolutely.
quick questions.
Yeah.
Want to bring this up with you. Assessment on Friday night's opponent, the Montreal Alouettes, and what are some keys to an Argos win over a very good Montreal team who obviously won the Grey Cup last year?
I like the balance. We talked about it earlier, but I like the balance. I like the fact that they've been able to establish a running game. I think I have these numbers right, where Montreal right now is second in the CFL in rushing yards per game at 95, and the Argos are first with 153. That's how well the Argos have been running the football compared to every other team in the league. So a good steady dose of that will help out the team and help out Cam Dukes. I think that they have to find a way to not duplicate, because I don't think they'll be able to do it at this stage of the season with some of the new bodies. But when we think of the Eastern final last year, we think about the disappointment and the offensive mistakes. We don't think about a defense that held Cody Fajardo to 175 yards passing, sacked him 7 times, and held William Stanback to 15 yards rushing. So I don't think there's any way you can duplicate that. That was a remarkable performance. But they seem to have, the coaching staff has something on how to maybe attack this Montreal offense. So offense, it's a little different. They aren't relying on Mac like they did a year ago as a receiver. It seems like everybody on the field can catch the football, and Phil Pop may be the lead dog this year, but it's a very diversified offense as well. A little more speed in the backfield with Fletcher than Stanback, so it's going to be a test. The Argos are averaging 37 points a game to lead the league, and the Alouettes are allowing 15 a game to lead the league, so something's got to give.
Yeah,
Nick?
I have to agree. The defensive side of play is the part that really worries me. We saw in this last game against Edmonton that the secondary did not have one of their better games, and to try to make some adjustments. It looks like from what we've seen very early on the injury chart, it's a little speculative, but we got some guys coming back into the lineup, hopefully for this week against Montreal, which is a great sign to see. But yeah, for me, definitely being able to shut down Cody Fajardo is going to be really important, because the Argonauts did not have their best effort on that side last week, but also that Montreal picked them apart really well in the preseason game as well. I know it's a little bit kind of iffy at how things go with that. You don't necessarily have your full lineup in there, but Montreal's coming in with some confidence that in the preseason game at home, they were able to pick Toronto apart pretty well. I'm sure there's a lot of confidence that they have there that they'll be able to replicate the same in Toronto.
No question. And don't forget that team, and not to make excuses, because the A team and the B team played very well for the Alouettes, but a lot of guys were on that field that aren't with the Argonauts anymore, right? That was second and third guys. For the most part, the starters stayed home for the most part. They did get some of the offense in there to try, but defensively, I sat in Guelph with most of the starting defense watching the game. So, that was a different group in that game. And Montreal, they're not going to take Cody Fajardo out after a series, right? So don't read much into that. But no, it should be a whale of a game. Montreal, like I said earlier, they've got something to prove. The Argos have something to prove, and at this stage of the season, if you can win a game and get good film to teach with, that's a win-win. And the Argonauts secondary made some mistakes. They did in the first game with the blown coverage on the deep ball. There was a 50-yard touchdown, I think. But, there were some mistakes made by the secondary in the game against Edmonton. And now Coach Fields and Coach Ivan have a lot to work with in terms of correcting some of the mistakes, and Coach Lewis, some of the mistakes that were made in that game, and they've had a week now to study the film and for the two corners, get used to the bigger field. It looked like maybe they were just taking the wrong angle or the wrong approach on a couple of those deep balls, and hopefully that's something they cleared up during the week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just talking about the the comparisons between the first and the second game. I found there was a lot in that first game, which was a lot of result of busting coverage or maybe miscommunication on assignments. In the second game against Edmonton, I found a lot of it, whether it was Gino Lewis or Dylan Mitchell or Curly Gins, a lot of it was just maybe one-on-one just being outpowered on it. So I think they're getting better at that as a secondary. So I think they'll be able to apply that now, hopefully in this third game against Montreal, and be able to bring those elements and learn from those mistakes in those two games and bring it together into the third game to really shut Montreal down offensively. That would be an amazing thing to see on Friday.
You know, we always talk about the cohesion that's needed on the offensive line, which the Argos have because they played together for as long as they have. But the same thing goes on in the secondary. And when you're dealing with the three guys in the middle know the system. The two corners and the Sam don't. It's new to them. So, one guy's brand new to the CFL. Benji Franklin was here a little bit last year, learned the basics, and now he's got to get really involved and he's got speed to burn. So there's something there, obviously. And Moget's got to get used to the communication in the secondary and communicating with Royce Metier and the other guys on the inside and Pearson Amos. So once that stuff gets cleared up, it's going to be a better group. But it's going to take some time for the group to gel. And in the interim, you just hope you don't have too many cases where a guy gets beat or there's miscommunication on assignments. That's really tough to take.
Mike, I'm not sure you can say a lot, but what's the health look like for the Argos coming into this game against Montreal Friday night?
We'll see. As we talk here, it's Tuesday night. Let's see what was on the injury report today. Davaris Daniels and Jonathan Jones both practiced full today. How's that?
Yeah, huge plus if they got those guys back in the lineup.
And just a reminder to fans, when you see somebody go on the 6-game injured list, that doesn't mean they're going to spend all 6 games there. Often that's done as a precautionary measure, that there's a chance that an injury will linger. And to be safe, to get cap relief, you put them on immediately. And if they go to the full 6 games, you get cap relief. You can pull a guy off. All you have to do is make up for the salary cap hit. So that's what they did with Daniels. It was a precautionary thing. They pulled him off. He's ready to go. I think that the when they put him on the 6, it was just, oh boy. That's a absolute worst case scenario. But I don't think anybody realistically thought it was going to go 6. They just did that precautionary and he practiced full today. We'll see how it reacts tomorrow, but hopefully he's ready to go, as is JJ on game day.
If Davaris Daniels is good, it's a really big relief because I think we saw this last game against Edmonton. Dijon Brissett went down, I think, early second quarter, mid second quarter, and was he was still dressed, but he was kind of limping through most of it. I was keeping an eye on him from my spot below you guys in the stands watching, and so if they can get Daniels back in, it helps fill a roster spot up maybe if Brissett has to sit a game or two.
He didn't practice today, but we'll see what the prognosis is, and hopefully sooner rather than later. They're starting to get nicked up. The Canadian depth was such a strong point for them, but if he's unable to go, hopefully David Unger is ready to come back, and Kevin Mittal as well has yet to play his first game. So hopefully those guys are getting closer and closer, and you don't have 3 of the Canadian receivers down. It leaves just Sindani and Tommy Neild right now.
Mike, thank you for explaining to myself and the fans about the 6-game list as well for injuries.
Oh, my pleasure. Just the more people learn about this game, the more comfortable it is, and they are watching it. And this game is a great game. Sometimes people get thrown by some of the rules and the bylaws, present company excluded. You look at the depth chart now, and there's a lot of designations all of a sudden this year. So it's an interesting sport, interesting game, and with the draft and all of the intricacies of that, it's a fantastic sport to follow because there are so many different angles.
Mike, before we let you go, who could be an X factor for the Argonauts on Friday night? And I'll get Nick to ask you one more question, and then we'll wrap this up.
Let's see. Maybe let's go with let's go with the two halfbacks. Let's go with Amos and Pierce. Because we see Montreal attack, and Metier as well, because Montreal seems to like to attack the middle of the field and aren't afraid to throw the football deep in the middle of the field. So let's say they are the X factors this week, that they could be the guys that make a difference. And offensively, it's Montreal. And last year, Demonte Coxey owned the Alouettes, as did Tommy Neal. In the games that he played, Tommy Neal was sneaky good against the Alouettes. So if you want an unknown or sort of an under the radar X factor, let's go with Tommy Neal.
Talking about the secondary, I think what we've kind of seen through last season compared to, albeit still very early this season, the lack of turnover generation has maybe been one of the points that has been brought up. I think one of the things I know I would love to see that would really set a huge turnaround is in a key moment where Montreal might be starting to build momentum. Wouldn't you love to see someone like Amos or Metier get a huge interception at an opportunity time?
Well, think about last year in the game that clinched the East, the game in Montreal, where it looked like the Alouettes were going to get in position to go down and take the lead, and Peters intercepted a pass, brought it back. They're in field goal range. Boris gives them the lead on the field goal. So it was that interception in that game that was key. Much like last year in the Eastern Final, Duquois' interception really got them out of the gate and gave them confidence when they were underdogs and it looked like the Argonauts were going to score first. So you're right. Turnovers are huge. The timing of a turnover can be astronomical. And in that first game, don't forget, BC had taken that 20-6 lead and looked like they were going to put some more points on the board when Deshaun Amos had that interception, and the Argos were able to go back and score 7 the other way. That was a huge moment in that game, because if the BC Lions took a 3-score game in that in that game, who knows what the response would have been from the Argos. I think it would have been strong, but who knows?
For me, and my gut feeling in this game, I think the Argos are going to pull off an upset, 27-24, and my X factor is going to be Jarrett Brinkman. I think the big guy is going to have a big game on Friday night against the Alouettes. You
know what I love? A team that hasn't lost in 11 straight games at home, 11 straight at BMO, 11 in a row if you count the touchdown Atlantic game last year, 10 in a row at BMO, aside from the Eastern Final, but in the regular season. Hasn't lost a game, is leading the league in points scored, and are 4-point underdogs at home. I love that. Bring it on. Woof, woof.
And finally, Mike, we have the diehards and the season ticket holders, but somebody that's watching this live stream or on audio or on WQEE 99.1 FM in Georgia, why should casual fans consider coming out to a game at BMO Field this season?
In terms of times during a game that you can cheer, basketball probably is number one, right? Just the nature of the game. You go down, you're going to score 40, 50, 60 baskets a game. In the, baseball, 4 or 5 times a game, a couple of good defensive plays, they score a run, a couple of base hits, big cheer for a home run. You're going to cheer more at a football game because there are more big plays. It's the best dollar value deal in the city in terms of entertainment. You can get an inexpensive beer, an inexpensive hot dog if you want. I have not partaken in the $3 hot dog because I'm upstairs working, but my wife is a big fan. She says, I can't believe you guys sell those things for $3. So, if you can sell her on food, she's a foodie. If you can sell her on a good food item, then it must be good. But yeah, it's fantastic. The atmosphere, you mentioned the noise. If you're into atmosphere, there's a lot on the line. You're going to see big plays. You're going to see, a lot of players who, if you're that casual fan in Toronto that isn't a CFL fan, you favor the NFL. Well, a lot of these people in this game on Friday night are going to have NFL experience. So, it could be 2 seasons, 2 weeks, or 2 games, or, a couple of weeks in camp, but they've been there. So, the caliber of football is extremely good, and there's a grudge match here. Like, it's got all the intangibles you want. So I'm a football fanatic. You guys know that, but and I'm biased because I work for the organization. But I said it before I worked for the Argos that the CFL is just in Toronto is just such an underappreciated gem, and I wish more people would kind of take a look and come in and polish that gem a little more fervently and give the league a chance, because if you go, you're going to have a good time.
And Mike, I want to give a shout out to the GO train. I was aware of the changes last week, but as soon as I got to Aldershot, there was a bus there for me, bussed me right to Oakville, got me right to the stadium. So if you don't want to drive down to BMO Field or Toronto, take the GO train. And it was a good experience on Saturday, and I give them a lot of credit for having it organized and ready to go.
Perfect. Yep, 30-second walk from the stadium.
Nick, final thoughts for Mike Hogan before we let him go.
It's amazing, 150-year-old institution here as part of this city. There's a reason why the Argonauts continue to exist and continue to thrive. And all we want to do as fans is continue to show support and to draw new blood into it.
And the suggestion you want, sorry to interrupt, but if you are a new fan or a casual fan or a diehard fan, bring somebody to the game on Friday. Share your passion with them. I know it's frustrating for a lot of CFL fans, and maybe that's why the community is as good as it is. Because if you go into the office on Monday, if you're in Regina, and everybody's talking about the Rider game, right? You do that in Toronto, not all of your coworkers, if any, in some cases, are going to want to talk about the CFL game because they didn't see it. Bring them down to a game. Say, hey, come down, see why I'm as passionate as I am. Give them kind of the Coles Notes version of what's there. Here's Cameron Dukes. Here's why you should watch him. Here's Cody Fajardo. Here's why you should watch him. And pick some of the 2 or 3 big players that they're going to be seeing in the game, so there's a little comfort level. If the person you're bringing down is a fan of a certain university, and you can find a connection between that university and one of the teams playing, say, hey, you're a Notre Dame fan. DeVaris Daniels played there. They played Alabama in the national championship game. DeVaris led the both teams in receptions that night and yardage. Like, dude can play. And all of a sudden there's or if they're coming in from Oakville, this guy he's from Oakville. Come and watch him. Just try and personalize it for them.
You knew the same for some of the NFL guys who don't say so much, like they don't want to watch CFL because somehow it's below the NFL. Well, here's a whole list of guys who are on NFL teams in the past. There's a lot of guys like that who come in as well in the CFL, and we've seen in some interviews with guys like Chad Ochocinco have talked about how phenomenal the level of CFL talent is, how some random nobody named Adam Bighill absolutely completely clocked them on the floor in one-on-one drills.
Yep, it's great athletes up there, no question about it. And I just I wish fans would give a little more of a chance. The brand has taken a beating through different ownership groups over the years. Some of it deserved, most of it not. And it's a great product, and I just wish people would get over the fact that, is it the NFL? No, but I will ask fans of both leagues, and especially go with the NFL fans. Name one rule. And take the 3 and 4 down difference out of it. Name one rule from the NFL that is more fan-friendly than its CFL counterpart. You can't do it. And I love the NFL, but the CFL is a far more fan-friendly game. Motion is better. Size of the field is better. Size of the end zones promotes more offense. The fact that kicks are returned is great. Kickoffs are returned. There's no fair catch. All of it promotes more offense, which is what I think fans want to see. So
when you go back to that Montreal-Toronto game at the Sky Dome the one year where they had a kick-out team for Toronto to prevent the Rouge, like that's in any other league it would be insane, but in our league, having that, it is the greatest thing to watch. And I thought for sure we might have seen that in the end of this game last week had Howard Lahu missed it wide, but it was still short. You got to think it was in the ear of the returner for Edmonton if it was Leak to kick it out just to prevent the point from scoring.
You know who doesn't remember that play fondly? The guy who called it on the radio, because there was too much to say in that time. With Mike Bradwell and Duvall and Pre was out there and Grant Shaw was out there. It was a
Well,
wild play.
that's a play-by-play commentator problem. That's not a fan problem.
100%. As a fan, it's like, that was awesome.
And the best thing about the CFL is it doesn't matter what the score is. The game is not over until there's no time left on the clock. So, you know what? It's never over until it's over.
Timing of the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, in the last 2 minutes, you might get 3 changes of possession.
And the NFL,
you see a guy take a knee 4 times.
Yeah, in the NFL, it's like, okay, the game's over. They got no more timeouts left. CFL, man, it's crazy. And Mike, before we wrap this up, what time is your broadcast with Ben Grant on TSN 1050 Friday night pregame and that?
Yeah, it's a 7:30 kickoff, 7 o'clock pregame. So Ben and I will be on at that point. Get down early. Make sure you're there at halftime for the ceremony as well. Ricky Ray and 3 other people whose names will be released on Wednesday will be honored. But yeah, we're really looking forward to this. It's 3 of the most important people the Argonauts have ever had come through the organization, and I'll leave it at that.
And where can they get tickets? Where is it?
Argonauts.ca.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Mike, on behalf of Nick and myself, we want to say thank you for giving us over 50 minutes of your time tonight. And I will be watching the game on TSN or TSN 1050, and we'll definitely see you on July 27th because the Argonauts are going to be on a 3-game road trip after this game on Friday night.
Yep. Always fun, guys. Don't mind the length of time because I charge by the minute.
Definitely, Mike. But Nick, final thoughts?
Yeah, always a pleasure, Mike. We're always glad to have you, and I always love bantering with you. So take care,
Awesome.
and thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Go
Mike.
Argos. Thank you.
Go Argos.
Go Argos.
Thanks, buddy. You too. Thanks, Mike. All right, guys. That was Mike Hogan. Nick, thoughts on Mike Hogan coming on here tonight?
What can you say? He's one of the best, and what makes him so great is that not just is he just a media coordinator or anything like that. Like you and I, is diehard Argo fan since the kid. So shares that passion and shares it with everybody he talks to. And the fact that he's willing to be on here for almost an hour to spend the entire show with us, he's amazing and one of the best. And yeah, if you've never seen an Argonaut game or you tune in on TV or whatnot, but I highly encourage you to tune in to TSN 1050 during the Argos game and listen to the live radio broadcast with him calling the play-by-play and Ben Grant doing the commentary. They've had a lot of fantastic commentators through, and Chris, I'm sure you can cite them all off by name like you always do. But for me personally, I think this duo of Hoagie and Ben Grant is maybe one of the best to do it, to cover Argos games. The excitement, the energy, the analytics, there's just such a wonderful blend. And we talk about with radio how important it is to be able to paint the picture in the listener's head for someone who can't see the game, and they always do such a fantastic job. So I got to give my tremendous amount of thanks to them for what they do, and I can tell you I'm really looking forward to this game against Montreal.
Did you know Dave Hodge broadcast the Argos games in the 70s?
I did, actually. I was
Dave
aware.
Hodge.
Dave Hodge was something special for me.
Yep.
For me, I didn't really know much about him until he was on the reporters on TSN as one of the frequent guys on there. But when I started looking back and learning about his history, that he could have potentially have been the Ron McLean instead on Hockey Night in Canada, like that. That's just pretty wild stuff to learn about. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hey, before we wrap this up, the Argos 3 stars of the game against the Edmonton Elks, I'm going to go with Cameron Dukes, Kadeem Carey, and my 3rd star is no longer an Argo, but McLeod Bethel Thompson, who was the CFL Player of the Week, are my 3 stars. Nick, who were your 3 stars of this game against the Elks?
Well, you took some pretty good ones from me, but I was definitely thinking about leaning towards giving a huge acknowledgement to McLeod Bethel Thompson, and like I said, I will still acknowledge that he did a fantastic job this game, and it was really nice to see it not being a win where he just had a terrible performance. So I'm really glad to see that he played a really big game. For me, I got to give credit to Cameron Dukes. He's one of my stars for just the way he composed himself and had a really solid game again, mistake-free, fewer mistakes than he had in the previous game against BC. I'm going to give it to Janarian Grant. My apologies that I mixed him up with Richie Sindani earlier. For that return he had, especially the sort of counter cutback that he did. And then the other one I'm going to give it to is Liram Haralahu for the game-winning field goal, because to come up clutch, there was in the first game and in the preseason, he missed a couple extra points, but for him to just make the clutch kick when he needed to put the game away, Liram Haralahu gets my credit for that and my third star.
And you know what? I got to give the defense a little credit, because at the end of the game, they did make a stop. And I think one of the big plays in that game was the 5-yard roughing the penalty against the Elks that basically gave the Argos the ball and changed the field position as well. So at the end of the game, the Argos got some breaks, but the defense did their job at the end. And Liam, he's a solid kicker, and he's done a good job for the Argos so far. And got to give the Argos organization credit. I, as a season ticket holder and doing some freelance media work, I was kind of worried about the team coming into this year, but so far the player moves have been outstanding, and one game at a time. And this is a huge game against Montreal, because then they got to go on the road for 3. So we'll see. This is going to be their first real test of the season. Obviously, BC was a test, and now Montreal being the Grey Cup champion. So, Nick, before we wrap this up, we're going to do our final segment, CFL Week 4 games. I'm going to let you go first this week. Edmonton at BC, Montreal at Toronto, obviously Saturday on Friday night, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Hamilton and Ottawa. Thoughts on those games?
Yep. So just reflecting back on last week, my streak ended at 11 straight successful picks. Unfortunately, I wrongfully, as an Argos fan, put faith in Hamilton to win a game in Saskatchewan of all places. So I got that one wrong. Going on to week 4, BC and Edmonton and BC. As much as we keep saying Edmonton's a better team and they're going to win, I don't think they're going to be able to do it against BC at home. So I'm going to pick BC in that game. I'm going to take Montreal over Toronto in week 2. The big controversial pick is going to be that one for me. The Winnipeg and Calgary game, I think Calgary at home is going to find a way to make Winnipeg start 0-4. And for the Hamilton-Ottawa game, I'm going to give it to the Ottawa Red Blacks at home to hand Hamilton their 4th straight loss. What about you, Chris?
For me, Edmonton at BC, I'm going to go with BC, but this is going to be maybe the game of the week. I really think the Elks are going to be very competitive, but I think BC at the end gets a late field goal. Montreal, Toronto, I'm going to go with the Argonauts in an upset, 27-24. It's going to come down to a last-second game-winning field goal again. Winnipeg, Calgary, I got to go with the Blue Bombers. They're too good of a team to go 0-4. I just think Michael Shea will have them ready to play, and I've got the Bombers winning that game. And then Hamilton, Ottawa. This is I'm not saying for Ottawa. What's Ottawa's record right now? 1-2. I know Hamilton 1-1. For Hamilton, they're 0-3. They've got Scott Milojevic, new head coach, and Bo Levi Mitchell is healthy. There was expectations for this team to kind of compete with Toronto and Montreal in the East. To me, this is almost a must-win for the Tiger Cats. I'm going to go with them to win this game over Ottawa. So my picks, BC, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Hamilton.
We got some pretty big deferring picks that could really separate our win-loss records at this point. One thing I will chime in, just so everybody knows in terms of the point spread, BC's overwhelming favorites among Edmonton. Montreal's 3.5-point favorites over Toronto on the road. Winnipeg's 3.5-point favorites as well on the road against Calgary. And Ottawa is 1.5-point favorites at home against the Ticats. So with the exception of the BC-Edmonton game, every game is potentially within a touchdown and arguably within a field goal in most situations. So I think what we've seen too in this past week and leading up to then week 2, 7 of the 8 games were within a 3-point spread, I think, but in the final 3 minutes and had a lead change. And then coming into this third week, I think it's now 7 of 12. So it's still a very good ratio right now. So between the really tight scoring games and the just amount of offensive play, this has been by far the most successful offensive season up to this point. It's really encouraging to see that we're getting a lot of really exciting, action-packed, but also really tight and competitive games across the board.
And finally, Nick, everyone can follow me on Twitter or Twitter X at Christy Pomay. Nick, where can people follow you on social media?
Yep. As always, you can follow me on Twitter X as well at Nick_small_38.
All right. Well, Nick, I want to say thank you for coming on episode 3 tonight with Mike Hogan, the manager of communications and the play-by-play announcer. If you want to get down to the game Friday night, is it a 7 or 7:30 kickoff at BMO Field? You can get tickets at argonauts.ca, and the game will be on TSN and on TSN 1050 with Mike Hogan and Ben Grant. I was pretty sure it was a 7 o'clock kickoff.
7:30 pregames at 7. That's what Mike Hogan said on his 1050 broadcast.
Okay, because I get mixed up with the Saturday Sunday game starting at 7. So 7:30 kickoff, BMO Field.
One thing I just got to reach out to our listeners about. Some of y'all complain that a Sunday night start was bad. Some of y'all complain that a Saturday night start was bad. Well, now you get a Friday night start. So if you're complaining about all three at this point, you're just making up excuses. So you better be there. It's going to be a good game.
Absolutely. And like I said, I have the Argos in an upset 27-24. Nick, you'll have to fill me in. I'm going to try to watch some of the game on TSN and TSN 1050. And we'll definitely see you on Saturday, July 27th against Winnipeg. The Argos will be on the road for most of July until July 27th. So, hey, Nick, thank you so much. Go ahead, Nick.
One more reason for going to this game on Friday night, because it's going to be almost a month before they're back home again.
Absolutely. So, Nick, thank you for coming on. Mike Hogan, the manager of communications and the play-by-play announcer, for coming on. And I want to say thank you to WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, for airing our show as well. They love the CFL. And Ryan O'Neill, the station manager, is watching. And Rod Peterson, huge CFL fan. His show's on WQEE 99.1 FM. So our next episode 4 will be next week. Date and time and guest, if we can get one, will be announced as well. But again, you can check out the CFL website at cfl.ca, and the Argonauts website is at argonauts.ca. And again, you can follow us on Twitter X at Christy Pomay, and then Nick's is Nick_small_38. Nick, have a great night, and we'll see you back here next week for episode 4 of the Argo Bounce live audio show as well.
Thanks, Chris. Go Argos.
Thanks, Nick. All right, guys. And before we wrap up this show, the next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show is going to be Thursday, June 27th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. My special guest is going to be the Toronto Argonauts public address announcer at BMO Field, Adam Goss. Adam is one of the biggest Argo fans out there, and he's been their longtime public address announcer at, I believe, at the Skydome at some point, and at the BMO Field. So Adam Goss, the PA announcer for the Argonauts, this Thursday night, 8:30 on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet and on WQEE 99.1 FM. And Friday, June 28th, 6 p.m. on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show, I have Scott Crawford, the Director of Operations of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, to come on, and we're going to talk about the 2024 class that was celebrated in St. Mary's 2 weeks ago as well. Special thanks to Mike Hogan, again from the Toronto Argonauts, and my co-host Nick Small. And I hope everybody has a great night and enjoy the CFL games this weekend. And as always, go Argos.
together fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go! Go Toronto Argos, go, go, go! Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together